using Midjourney to create masterful art and accelerate your business. To today's special epic guest, Rory Flynn, on the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Now, Rory, I'm really excited to have you here because I'm a big fan of your work. And I just wonder how you first decided that Midjourney was going to be your platform and how you kind of got passionate about AI art right from the beginning.
Yeah, man. Well, number one, appreciate you having me on. Thank you. There was definitely the inflection point. I saw, I think, some things on Twitter that really got my attention back in 2022. I think it was Peter Griffin as a 1980s like sitcom. And I was like, what the hell is this? How is this possible? And then I saw, the Pope in like a Balenciaga jacket. And I'm like, all right, so this stuff can do things. I'm like, let me get on this. It started as a late night Twitter like rabbit hole. And before I know it, I was like generating images till 4 a.m. So I was like, this is really cool. But how it really started to take off was when I needed to use it in my business. So that was something that, keeping the story not too long here, I was working with my partner and we had an email marketing agency, and we had a lot of clients and we had a lot of demands. And essentially, like, we just didn't have the capital to invest in, employees. Our margins were already tight to begin with. So it was something that was based out of necessity. And we're like, can we use this tool? Can this be a fix? For something like as simple as email marketing, right? Where it's got a really like small lifespan. No one's going back in their promotional inbox and checking something from 2 weeks ago, right? So it's something that we could test, and it was smaller format too. So we didn't have to worry about the resolution at the time. So we just started utilizing that with our clients and being like, we can tell better stories with this with a lack of assets, and, will it work? And it did. So then that was, before you know it, start talking about that a little bit. And it seemed like there was some interest from a lot of people, and we just kind of kept amplifying it and blowing it out. So to keep a really long story short, that's kind of what's been going on.
So the reason I reached out to you is I love your approach to teaching art. And my biggest pet peeve is the number of people who are putting out bad AI art. It
Mm.
reminds me of when people first discovered clip art in the 90s and everyone was posting these low resolution images. And now we have this amazing tool, but a lot of people will just write a really short prompt. They all seem to be using Dolly 3 because it has that Dolly 3 wet look. And
Uh,
I can always tell it just has that look of like, I wrote a really short prompt, like a 2-word prompt, and I just posted the first thing it made. Why do you think so much of that's happening? And how is the market going to correct?
yeah, I think it's just it's the easy, quick and easy, right? Like how quick and fast can we get this out? And there's people that from a quality standpoint, I don't know if they've ever had to submit art before and deal with clients or deal with anything like that, where the critiques always come back and it's always something, right? So I have been a designer in a past life, and there's things that I submitted that I thought were magical and just got shredded, right? So there's always like this sort of perfectionist ideal that has to go into it because you're putting your name on it, right? Now, that's kind of how I approach everything with this, because there's so many voices out there. Everyone's got a different theory. Everyone's got a different process, structure, whatnot. This process, what I do works for me, but it really is like how do I get the highest quality images so I don't have to go back and forth with clients or, people that I'm working with a million times. So, I think education is what is going to kind of correct itself. As soon as people get more interested in the tools and really want to get like really high quality work out of it, they have a very strong vision and they want to know how to get there. Once you start breaking down the programs, they all somewhat work very similarly, a lot of the image generators. So once you get to that point, you start playing around with it in like I don't know, scientific fashion, but more so just, really diving into the intricacies of the tool. Then you realize you can do anything. And then once you get to that point, then you realize, well, what do I want to do? And then from there, it's just how do I, basically reverse engineer to get to, any sort of image, visual, kind of concept that I want to get to. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to correct itself as people start to learn these tools a lot better.
When you're thinking about posting an image online, whether it's in a thumbnail or going to be on one of your social media feeds, what's the line you look for? Because some people go just good enough. Some people go pretty interesting. I'm always trying to create something that I would want to look at anyways, or that
Huh.
I think is funny. Those are two of the things I look for. Like, do I like this or is it funny to me? So a lot of stuff I post is, I think when I show this to my kids, will it be funny? Like, I post a picture of me riding a dinosaur on the moon holding a laser rifle. And I told my kids, I showed the picture to my kids, and I was like, yeah, before I met your mom, I was a bounty hunter. And they go, what were you? And it's funny to me. So that kind of drives what I create. But I feel like that a lot of people they're not thinking out what's the line I want to be above. So where do you think people who are starting out should go? Like, what's the line they should look for? Because I always say, I always say this, are you proud of that image? Which maybe that's too high.
There's, to me, well, I think it was based on the medium, right? Like my medium was social media for this. So to me, what do I need to do to win on social media is I need stuff that stops your scroll. Right now, for stuff for myself, it looks totally different than when I put out into like the commercial space, if you want to call it that. But that was how it started was, okay, I'm, basically utilizing this as a tool. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to create content and stand out. Everyone's got this plain, carousel cover with just text and like an image of themselves, or it's white and black background, like very simple, right? So I was like, let me throw up a picture of, some sort of alien with neon face paint because you haven't seen that on LinkedIn today, probably. So that's probably my line of demarcation there is, have you seen this today? Have you seen someone with, this intricate patterned face paint or tattoos on their face? Just because that to me stands out, it stops, makes you say, what is this about? And then people go in and read it. So that's, for me, that was like the thought process behind trying to create this stuff a little bit more intricately. And it was just a way for me to, get people to stop the scroll and read my stuff because my copy wasn't great at the time when I started. But if I could stop you with the image, then maybe you'd read it. It was, that's kind of how I look at it. Have you seen this today? And if you have, then I'm just going to scrap it. And if you haven't, or at least I hope you haven't, that's what's getting posted.
A lot of people they think about AI as speed and, oh, AI can make an image fast. And that becomes the only thing they're looking at, which is, well, if I just make an AI image, I can post 10 images today as opposed to one really good one. When I make, like, I really, really putting a lot of effort into growing my YouTube channel as well now. And thumbnails is such a war. It's all, the video doesn't matter. The thumbnail is everything. And most good creators will make 20 versions of their thumbnail and run massive tests. And they spend more time they'll do 90% of the time on the thumbnail, 10% of the time on the video. When I discovered that, I might spend an hour making a video and 4 or 5 hours on the thumbnail, and people don't see that. They just think, oh, that's the first image you generated. I wish the first image you generated was the best one. Like, there's so much goes into it. Then you have to do 3 different variations that are different because maybe it's not going to be the winner because the audience will choose. How do you kind of, when you're creating your trainings or when you're teaching people to start creating art, help them to switch from the mindset of AI is fast to also AI can be good?
So I think it's always, again, right? Like, this is a perfect example with the YouTube thumbnails. If you're just using a black background with white text that's been done 10,000 times, that's not going to generate anyone's interest, right? Like, you have to it's almost like you have to keep getting weirder and crazier and more extreme. Now, with the tools that we've had before AI, that wasn't really, you could only push it to a certain degree unless you were an exceptional designer. Now there's no limitations. So you can go as crazy as you want to if you know what you're trying to do. So yeah, I'd say that, there is a speed factor, but you look at the way that, these prompts that everyone utilizes and, puts them out for 1,000 prompts for Midjourney. And if everyone's using them, everyone's stuff looks the same. You don't stand out. You're not going to get clicks. Right. So same thing is like, how do I push this? How do I make this look different? How to, let me go scroll. Let me go type my, my main keywords into YouTube, look at every single image there. What are they structured like? What are their color schemes? How do they look? Let me just do the one that stands out, like the opposite, right? Like that's how I would go about it. But it's, I think it's just really the quality to me is, how much creativity can you inject into an image without making it just crap? Or how can you push it just a little bit further? How do you add textures to it? How do you add different lighting styles to it to make that, that pop more? So it's, it's a little bit of design baked in with it from a knowledge standpoint, but it can be super, if you're looking at a shelf of cereal boxes, right? Like, this is how I like to think about it, right? Go down cereal aisle in the grocery store, everything's like flashy neon colors, like big illustrations, and there's just one black box in the middle there. It's like that one stands out because it looks different than everything else. So I think it's it's surveying the landscape of what you're trying to compete in, and then, differentiating, but utilizing the tools not to just, make generic, watered down crap, just to like, let's push it forward. So long answer, but I think the really nuanced question.
I think a lot of people, and this is a misconception out there, think that learning Midjourney is like learning Photoshop, which means it's going to take 2 years or 4 years. In the past, to learn how to edit a photo, or learn how to edit a video, years of work.
Mm,
Years of work. They need physical tools and all these other elements and a really powerful computer. So people have this misconception, and I don't think the AI companies have done much to disabuse people of this notion that the learning curve is, well, if I want to get as good at Midjourney as Rory, it's going to take me 6 or 12 months before I can start making something that's any good. What is the real learning curve? Like, how long do you think it takes people to start creating pretty good images?
I think right now it's a lot quicker because, granted, there's a lot of people on the internet, myself, a lot of other creators that have basically, shortened the learning curve because we've taken all the hits with zero direction. We had to get in there and test and do a ton of different things to see what worked. But now we've shortened it down for a lot of people, right? So I think going in there with some structure, number one, like understanding how the tools work, that made me a lot better. Like how this tool actually thinks, how it works, because then it became way clearer how to get better results instead of just like, let me just throw some words in there, see what happens. And then, okay, that didn't work. Like, let me just scrap that prompt, go do it again. Like, how does the whole tool think? How does Midjourney's brain think? And then where can I break it? Like, how far can I push it? So I think, starting basically understanding where the tool, how it lives, how it thinks, and then just some basic structures, like knowing what makes up a good image. Like, what is the basic building blocks of any image, any good visual? Then you can just fill in the blanks, right? And then when you have to fill in the blanks, then you can interchange those blanks, right? So to me, they're like visual building blocks when you're creating prompts. You have your lighting, your composition, your subject, your emotions, things like that. If you think about them in those, in those terms, and they're just basically like little Lego blocks, you put one in, you switch one out, then it's just easier to test too, to get what you want. Cause then you start to realize, how Midjourney or any of these image creators react to just individual words or individual terms. Cause one word can make a total difference. Like if you put, for example, into Midjourney, this word for me, whatever, what did you say? You had a prompt like woman with tattoos, right? Like comes out fairly generic. If you put woman with intricate tattoos, like the word intricate changes the entire thing. So, knowing that, really helps, especially when you're trying to achieve something, work backwards from something. So yeah, I think that's, knowing the tool and then also really understanding and having a little bit of structure to get started can help you get to the end result a lot quicker and get a lot more quality.
So I went through your entire program. I'm very impressed by what you do. I bought your program, and what I love is that to learn everything you teach, it takes a single day. So in 8 hours, I can go through all your videos, all your demos, do my stuff alongside them. When I think about how long it takes to learn anything else, that's so much shorter. If you want to learn Photoshop, they're like, okay, you got to go to college for 4 years, or you got to at least do 2 years. So there's a lot of this feeling. And I want that to be the first to express to people that even though it sounds like we're talking is really hard, the process you're talking about of figuring out how Midjourney works is like 1 week of playing around.
Yeah.
Like one day, you can start to get things that are interesting, and within a week, you can start to get things that are amazing. A lot of what happens is when we create differently than we receive. So people will look at my art and go, this isn't good enough. Only this is good enough. When they're making their own stuff, the bar is much lower. And that's really the critical part here, is to think, what's that line going to be? And I love how yours is, will people notice this? Will this get the click? What are people responding to? And I try to use it. Mine is, of course, an internal line. Is it something I'm proud of, or something I'm excited to show people? Do I want to show this to my wife and kids? Like, because my wife does not know what my job is. I ask her all the time, like, what do you think I do? So if I can make something that's interesting enough for her to look at it and want to play around with it, then I'm having a success. Like that is one of the things I love about art generation, is that work can be fun again. And there's this thing that a lot of people do where they don't treat it like a business. So a lot of people will sometimes go, oh, is there a cheaper alternative? And I go, it's $8 a month. Like, how cheap do you need it to be? Because there's diminishing returns. There are free AI image generators, but you are going to get a free quality result. There are like there are free stock photo sites and paid stock photo sites, and there is a really big difference in the quality of the images. So how do you kind of create that mindset when you're talking to people, when you're trying to show people that this is a useful tool, of like, this is worth an investment? Because a lot of people go, oh, I want to buy your program, but I don't want to have to buy a second thing. And I'm like, well, this is the tool that I use. There's no alternative. I'm a huge Midjourney fan. It's definitely been the core of my business. I use some other specialized tool for small tasks, but 90% of the time I'm inside Midjourney. So how do you kind of approach it from that business mindset of this is a business tool, which means learning this tool is an investment, creating better images investment, because the better my images are, the more customers I'll drive, so the business will grow. So to me, it's all connected, but a lot of people try to shortcut the wrong parts of the business. I feel like that's where a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses make mistakes, whether they're doing commercials or trying to get into TikTok or trying to create like images for their brand.
Yeah. I think this is a really good question because, again, people don't see the value until they actually start to utilize it in their day to day. Now, the way I've been going about it and talking about it for a long time is I think there's a misconception too with everything that Midjourney or any of these image generators do is that there needs to be a finished product, right? Like it needs to come out, it needs to be polished, it needs to go on a billboard, right? There's way more use cases than just that. So my whole goal in talking about this to people is to find not only the use cases for finished product, but also like internal and operations, right? So like I look at things like advertising agencies, right? They have to do storyboards. Storyboards take a long time. They have to be illustrated. They go through a lot of revisions. And typically, something like that, if you can get that process down in Midjourney, that can be done in 2 hours, right? And it can be high quality and it can be really good. Now that's an amplifier to your business, right? Same theory goes is like, okay, like let's, working with a product photographer for our brand. The product photography sort of process can be long, it's expensive, and oftentimes you don't get a ton of assets out of it at the end of the day. Maybe you get 100, 200, but even like going through and finding a photographer and then like having to understand their vision and working through the revisions after they take the photos, the edits, things like that, you're able to provide them basically, here's what I want to do with my images. Here's the clear direction that I've created in Midjourney. This is how I want it to look. This is the lighting. These are the colors. These are the positioning. They can just go and execute. They don't have to ideate either. So we can outsource a little bit of decision making there. Now, again, same thing with something like email marketing. Like you can run templates on Midjourney. You don't have to use the templates verbatim. It's like, here's basically an idea. I need to switch up some of the, basically some of the contextual pieces, some of the text blocks and some of the image holders and things like that. So you can get a start, go edit it out in Photoshop or Figma, add your own text, add your own images, and you have a new template. So it's like, oh, we can use it for logos. Oh, we can use it for icons. It's just like thinking about there's no real like end to it. You can go really far, but like, where are the use cases? How is it going to help you actually? Not just like, I need this banger of an image, but also how can I trim 2 hours off of my day? Like that's how I'm looking at it and how I'm trying to tell people about it. Cause it's just, when you start to see all of it, you find uses for it. Like it just becomes, if I start to think, what can Midjourney do for me today? It's like, oh, there's probably 10 things that it can do for me today. So that's, again, I could probably talk about that for like 8 hours if you let me there. But it's to me, it's just one of the most versatile things that I've ever had access to.
So the thing, when I think about the real value of what ChatGPT has brought to the market, it is leveling the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, because I've been in the writing space, a ghostwriter for a long time, and the first question they ask you is, are you a native English speaker? But now anyone from any country in the world could run their text through ChatGPT and it looks like native English. You never think, oh, this is a foreigner, right?
Mm-hmm.
It solves that problem. It creates an equalization. And I feel like when used correctly, when you approach it correctly, so I see Midjourney as it allows me to compete, because when I'm creating YouTube thumbnail, there are some people whose YouTube thumbnail photo shoots are $10,000, $20,000, $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
They're on location. They're at the Great Wall of China, which means they flew everyone there. They've got 2 photographers. They've got lighting. They've got other actors. And you're doing a full photo shoot because they take 20 different pictures. Then there's post-production. My friend used to be a photographer for Italian Vogue, which is the fanciest of the Vogues.
Mm-hmm.
After you would take a picture of a beautiful model, he would then Photoshop it for a minimum 15 hours. And when I learned that, I was like, wait, aren't these already the most beautiful people in the world?
Yeah.
Like you have to do so much Photoshopping. All of that now you can do in a 30-second image generation with an AI. You can compete. Anyone, no matter how small their company is, can create images with beautiful models, beautiful people, beautiful locations, real or unreal places, things that used to be impossible. And my feeling for the small business owners, this is your chance right now to have a tool that's very affordable compared to what my stock photo costs used to be $135 a month. Now so to me, I'm saving a ton of money. Switching to this new platform is so much more affordable. That's really what I think one of the most beautiful things is. And that's the big opportunity, is that these tools give you a chance to compete with people that have much bigger resources. And now you have this ability to create competitive images, to create competitive things, because like in the past, it's so hard for me to figure out what's the hex code for glowing, what's the
Yeah.
hex code for neon blue. Like those have always been really hard for me to accomplish, like certain colors. But now you can describe the image. Someone last week said to me, I don't know have any artistic bones in my body. I know if I like it or I don't like it. I go, that's the only skill you need now.
Yeah.
Literally, you describe it to Midjourney, you go, I like it or I don't, run the prompt again. And that's what I think is really the beautiful thing, is the leveling of the playing field, which means anybody, no technical knowledge, because you don't need to learn a bunch of like coding or complicated promptings. There's really simple structure. It can create amazing images.
Yeah, it's 100%. I think we, like you said before, we've just raised the floor. Like the average is now just higher than it was from an image standpoint, right? Or from a visual standpoint. Because also, someone like me, right? Like I am not a professional designer by any means, shape, or form. Like I was forced into it for a previous role that I needed to just get somewhat good at it to put, visual presentations together. And, you get a tool like this where I never had the opportunity to go to college for design and learn for 4 years and learn Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, things like that. Right. But because I was working in it, I knew a lot of the terminology. I knew what I was trying to get to. It's just like you don't have the same sort of workflow, in Photoshop if you haven't been like completely trained. So now I just have a tool that can get me there quicker. And then I can use Photoshop to help me on some of the other things. But yeah, it's really like, I use the analogy fairly often, right? It's like, I think, in the hands of, your average person, right? You give the average person like an F1 car and say, go win at Monaco, right? Or you give someone give a professional race car driver an F1 car and to go win at Monaco, who's going to win? It's still going to be the person, who has the skills, right? But now that person has an F1 car. So it's to me really like you're only as good really as you want to be on this. And that sounds so cheesy, but really, if you want to be good and you want to get good, you can get there. You just have to put in, a little bit of effort, or you can just generate whatever you need. And it doesn't have to be award-winning style stuff. So I think it's, again, small business, it is the biggest opportunity for them. We've never had access to this level of technology. We've never had access to this level of creation. And, you look at something like, Midjourney, $120 at the baseline level per year. Can you find $120 worth of ROI? I'm pretty sure, between hiring a designer for some certain things or just even small projects. What cost $120 anymore? Like even if you wanted to do an ad layout or a, social campaign, you can create social assets. Think about all the ad things we just have to put out in general every day between social advertising, YouTube, content, whatever. There's $120 worth of value there to start with. So, shifting that mindset too, as well, going back to your previous question, is important.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of want to end on, because this is the really important point, which is it levels the playing field. So I've always struggled with Instagram, because Instagram to me is a platform for beautiful people. That's just what it is. It's men with six pack and bikini women. And that's who does really well in there, because it's very visual. And it means I cannot compete there because I'm a regular looking person. And I always see everyone who teaches Instagram is always beautiful. I go, well, that's not replicable, because only beautiful people can do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with AI, we can create beautiful images. One of my friends, she follows all these channels, which are just people creating AI images of different artwork and different ideas. And that's a way to create something that's really interesting and to kind of compete. So these new arenas where we couldn't compete before, whether it's against larger brands with big marketing budgets or even just against beautiful people, there's all these new ways to enter new markets and to be competitive and to create things that are fun and interesting. And I think that's kind of the most important thing, is that it's a fun process. It's interesting and you get a really quick turnaround. When the past, when I've had to like hire a logo designer, takes weeks. So every time you ask for a revision, they get mad at you. And then you finally go, okay, go back one revision. I don't want to fight you anymore. I'll just take the one from yesterday. And they're like, why didn't you tell me that yesterday? And you go, I didn't love it yesterday, but I just don't want to fight you anymore. Now, all of just getting away from that stress is like reason I'm happy to use these tools. Like just no more frustrations. But I love your approach to AI. I love the way you're teaching. I know people, I follow you on LinkedIn. I definitely want people to follow you on LinkedIn. And you have a new program out there called Midjourney Mastery. We have a link to that that's going to be in the show notes. People can check that out at artificialintelligencepod.com/Rory. I'm a big fan. I'm going to put links to that in the show notes and the YouTube video. If you want to learn, guys, the technical approach, a step-by-step methodical approach where he teaches each piece one on top of the other, and you can learn it all in a single day, become a high-level user, learn what all the magic words mean. There's not that many of them, and a really cool approach to prompting that's easy to remember. I encourage you to check it out. We're so excited to have you here today, Rory. Thank you so much for being here. This has been an amazing episode.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you for reaching out and having me on. This was really cool. So hopefully we can do it again sometime. But yeah, man, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening and learning a little bit more about Midjourney on today's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.